Hi, in this video I want to share some of my experience about the things I miss when I'm coding with Pharo. So if you don't know Pharo already, I have made a few videos before that it's its own language and its own environment. It's super object oriented, very cool language. But some of the things I do miss is the developer experience when having the editor. So right away, visually, you can see it looks kind of old, kind of gives me Java Swing vibes, to be honest. And I know there are a lot of nice things to be proud about the Pharo UI UX. Like for example, you got a Shift Enter to search anything. As you can see, some of the things don't scale up well, but it's not a big problem. You have this browser thing. You can use some shortcuts to close it. You can use some like shortcuts to do OP, have the browser, OP to open the playground. These are pretty much intuitive and these are pretty much easy to remember. Now, there are a few things that I would like to have. Like for example, when I do open my browser here, system browser, it reminds me of the shortcut right here. I think this is not as visible as I would like. Some of the things that I would suggest is to just implement a tracker. Like for example, if someone always does something like this on his mouse, like this for example, it's going to track how many times he does it. And instead of having this blank first window opening, I think it would be better to have like a suggestion of the day, like tip of the day right here, just for it to not be empty on one hand and for it to be optional on the other hand, yet being still very, very visible. The other thing that I'm missing with Pharo is certain keyboard shortcuts and also keyboard shortcut flexibility overall. What I mean by that is that usually on anything on my system, I usually use Option arrow to move left and right, like word by word, like in any other editor. Let's say IntelliJ, for example. So here I'm in IntelliJ. If I do Option left and right, I can move word per word. And if I go on VS Code, I can do pretty much the same. You see? I can do pretty much the same and it's nice. It's kind of universal to the macOS system. You have to do that with Control left and right on Windows. But when it comes to Pharo, it just doesn't work. Like for example, I try to do Option left and right. It just navigates through this different thing, which I'm sure has its uses. But turns out you have to do Command and left to do that. That seems a little bit off and it's not something that you can set in the settings. You have to touch the code to modify this. So this is a bit weird to me. The second thing I did not know though is that you can move word by word inside of camel case. I don't know if I have something to test that with. If I say Command right, I'm going to go through the next one. Same here, the handle test, I'm going to go to the end of the word with Command left and right. But if I do Command and Option at the same time and left and right, you can actually go through every single word inside of the camel case item. So I think that's very nice, but it's not very put forward, I'd say. I think it just needs to be put forward out there and it needs to be customizable, but it's not actually for now. So I would like it to be customizable because, for example, if you go on VS Code and then go inside of keyboard shortcuts here, you can pretty much change any of these with ease. And more importantly, if you go in IntelliJ, you can pretty much import the key map from your VS Code. Like for example, if you go key map here, key map here, you can see that it's based on VS Code macOS key map. So the fact that it is customizable is a big deal for me. And on Pharo, it's not super customizable because you just have to discover it. It's not that big of a deal again. It's just very little stuff that I miss. But I think these deserve much more spotlight because I think this one, the Command Option left and right, I think it deserves more love. I think the option left and right should be doing what it's supposed to do in all of the file system. So the third thing is something a lot more niche, I guess, is that I hope that someday Pharo has support for Vim. Because I do use Vim motions like WB, like CI, quote, U to undo, etc. This is pretty much a personal preference. I know that a lot of people use Emacs, a lot of people use Helix, a lot of people use Vim, and I think Vim is the most popular of the three, but sometimes people don't use either of these three. But I just wish there was support for it. I know there's a plugin, but it's like super old and not maintained, so it's a bit sad. And one thing that I want to do also with those Vim commands is just move around. Like if I want to go to my, like, you know, my nav bar, my Explorer bar on the right, I can just do Command Shift E on VS Code. I can go up and down. I can do some commands like A to create something like some file.ts, and it gets created. And I can go back again. I can go D. This is much more of a NeoVim thing, I think. And I can delete it, but it's nice. On the other hand, with Pharo, I pretty much have to click here unless there's like some subliminal shortcuts that I'm not aware of again. But I think it's little things that improve the developer's experience. So the fourth thing that I do miss, and it's really a personal preference of mine, is that sometimes when I'm debugging with the debugger of Pharo, there's a lot of windows opening up. Like for example, you have the playground here, and you have a debugger or inspector here. It can get kind of messy, honestly. So there's an option in Pharo that you can go tile and can go left and can arrange some stuff. And then let me open my playground actually, and this can go like right or left or something. So this is one way to arrange your windows. I know that some people, they don't mind many windows, and you have these options on the bottom to choose any of them, which is kind of nice. But sometimes it gets too stacked up, and I wish I had the option to circulate between all of these. Let me show you an example of what I'm trying to do here. So for example, I do have my IntelliJ here and I have my VS Code here. I wish I could do something like this with Pharo, like go from one window to the next, or at least I can arrange them on my screen. Like for example, with Raycast, I can do a certain command and it would put IntelliJ to the left. You can see my OBS right there. And then on VS Code, I can place this on the right, and you have a nice split even view. I can change this to max, I can change this to full screen. I wish Pharo had something like that, because I think there's sometimes too many windows. Of course, this is just personal opinion. It's not to bash away at Pharo whatsoever. It's just to see if we can improve some of the experience. So yeah, I think that's all for me. I just want to move in like usual, or for the shortcuts to be put into the spotlight. And I think it's just a nicer developer experience overall. And actually, I would be happy if I could code in Pharo with just my keyboard without using the mouse so often. But again, it's not very urgent, and it's something very specific to everyone's taste. But for example, I wish people would know that you can close this with Command W. I wish that they could be suggested some shortcuts that would be useful for them. I wish they could arrange their windows very carefully, and that we could access to Vim/Emacs/Helix, but that is so niche. That is such a niche thing. But yeah, overall, I think Pharo is great, but the UI is one of the things that I do expect going forward into Pharo 14 and 15 to be improved upon. I do wish it was as flexible as VS Code. You can customize everything about VS Code. Like for example, you can put the Explorer on the right instead of the left. You can change it. You can go into what they call Zen mode, like this. It's pretty nice. It's pretty customizable. I think I'd be pretty happy if Pharo just had this keyboard shortcut table. It has it, but it's not editable. You just have to tinker into the code to configure it. So if Pharo had this, I would already be happy, and I think that a lot of people, they would kind of show their configuration and share them with people. I think that could be a good idea. I don't know if you guys can relate to that, but I just wish that Pharo has these. I can still code with Pharo just fine. I just wanted to put it out there and share with you guys those experiences. So until next time, guys, I'm gonna make more Pharo videos, maybe some Svelte kit if you're interested into that. But yeah, see you guys around and take care.